We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrificed?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are Sex People! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hey Trent.
Hi Parth.
You're looking well.
You too, man. We have a film podcast. How's it going?
Going pretty well. We're recording at a late eve, later than we usually record.
Yeah, when you texted me earlier to record around like 2 or 3 p.m., I was home, but I just wasn't mentally in a state to record. And so I just texted you. I'm like, bro, I'm still at work. I'm so sorry. I'll probably be home in like 3 or 4 or 5 hours. And so I just like took a nap. And then I was like, oh, bro, I just got home from work.
What I don't understand, Trent, is like, I don't know why you lie to me. You could just say, because like you basically already do tell me, like when you're like, I just really don't want to right now. So no.
This was kind of a first. It was exciting.
Yeah. Did you feel the thrill of a lie?
Yeah, I'm famously not good at lying. Like when we play bodies, if I'm the murderer, I'm not a good actor. Because I just stay quiet and then everyone's talking and then they're like, Trent, you've been quiet, and then it's game over.
The only time that you were good at bodies was when you were the killer, but somehow misread the paper and didn't realize you were the killer. So nobody died for like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, I was the perfect killer because I looked at the wrong side of the little piece of paper. But Parth, before we get to what we're eating, I'm watching Seinfeld for the first time, like all problems aside there. And 2 friends of the Craft Services show have popped up.
2 friends of the show?
Steven Tobolowsky.
Whoa.
And then in the episode I'm watching, like, on my other tab right now, not a direct friend of the show, but sort of a friend of the show, Siobhan Fallon Hogan.
Yes, I was watching Seinfeld with my brother a few months ago, and Siobhan, I think that like she's like the crazy girlfriend or something, right?
Yes.
Like, I can't quite remember, but I remember she popped up and I was like, I've worked with that woman before.
Yeah, she, like, acted on our couch, on my old couch.
It's true. She plays Jefferson White's mom in Drink and Be Merry.
Which we had the director on for.
Which I produced and shot in Trent's college home.
And Steven Tobolowsky has been on this very show, if you scroll down a really long way.
It is a good interview, though. He's a good guest.
I famously listened to that episode and drained my phone battery as I was hiking, and then my phone was dead as I had my closest near-death experience because I was listening to the Steven Tobolowsky Craft Services interview, an interview I was physically present for, and I was thinking, we did a pretty good job here. And then I almost died.
Trent, when you're hiking, afterwards you get pretty hungry, right? So like...
Yeah, Parth, I was just about to transition too. I know we've been talking. What have you been eating?
Well, Trent, I have good news, good tidings. Sophia, friend of the show, very good friend of mine, her brother recently graduated from college and got a degree in physics and just got a job working at a lab in Chicago.
Chicago. Congratulations.
Yes.
That's awesome news.
Well done, Theo.
Theo.
Theo, Sophia's mom, and Sophia and I all went out to Clyde's in New Brunswick, New Jersey, had some food, and we sort of did like an apps situation. We got truffle fries, fried calamari, Caesar salad, and pork belly tacos.
So Theo's gonna move to Chicago.
It's what they're saying. It's what the streets are saying.
That's a pretty cool place to live, I think.
It is a cool place to live.
Being a physicist sounds hard, but more power to you. My sister is sort of a scientist, and she explained to me when I'm like in conversation, I'm just like, oh, she's like sort of a marine biologist. And then I said that to her the other day, and she was like, that's actually not at all what I do. And then she explained what she did, and I was like, that's so crazy. I don't do any of that, nor would I.
But Trent, you do eat. Is that true?
Parth is trying so hard to keep me on the rails right now.
Well, I'm just trying to keep... I'm curious, Trent.
I just had 2 clementines, and they were leftover crafty from the shoot I was on, because sometimes at the end of the shoot, I walked away with a garbage bag full of food today that I'm going to subsist on for probably the whole week and not go to the grocery store, because I have this whole bag of clementines. But before that, I hadn't eaten all day, and I went to work, and then I came back, and then it was like 3 p.m., and I still hadn't eaten all day. And so I went finally to the pizza place and ordered 2 slices of pizza, and then they messed up my order, and then I'm waiting there for the new slices of pizza, and then I'm getting really hot and uncomfortable, and I'm like, oh my god, I think I'm going to faint. Then the pizza experience took as long as possible, and then I was like, okay, do I try to eat the pizza here to like revive myself and risk fainting in public, or do I skateboard home as fast as possible and faint at home? And Parth, what would you do?
Faint at home.
Yeah, so I went home as quickly as possible, and my eyes were like flickering as I skateboarded home, but I made it home, ate a bite of pizza, and then I didn't pass out.
Well done, Trent. I'm happy for you.
Thank you. I've only fainted once before, and it's been a long time.
When did you faint?
In high school, me and my girlfriend at the time were going on like pedal boats.
Oh, I remember.
Do you know what those
this.
are?
Yes.
And they were explaining the rules to us, and we like had our life jackets on, and we were like right at like the edge of the water. And then I was like, oh my god, I can't hear anything, but that's fine. And then I was like, oh my god, I can't see anything.
But that's fine.
And then I woke up, and like all the heads were around me.
Wow.
And I said, like I always do,
That's not
don't.
fine.
I said, please don't call an ambulance. And then about, I'd say 15 minutes later, they were like, yeah, you can do the pedal boats.
Wow.
After regaining consciousness,
That's
they
crazy.
didn't seem worried about the legalness. After I sat in a chair 15 minutes, and they were like, okay, go for it. But yeah, we have a film podcast. Cue the intro.
Cue the intro.
Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film where they talk with us about their experience working on the picture. This week we had DP of If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, Chris Messina.
Trent, wasn't the interview great?
I had to ask Parth in our chit-chat before the episode. I was like, Parth, like, we always say the interview was good, but, like, the interview was good, right? Because, like, I wasn't there, but, like, he was nice and cool and interesting, and he confirmed he obviously was all those things.
Yes, unfortunately, Trent was working and unable to make it to this interview, so it's one of the rare no Trent interviews that we have. But no worries, guys. I held down the fort, and even if you don't find me interesting, you should find our guest, DP Chris Messina, interesting, because he shot a really cool movie that I really like, and he did a great job with it.
Yeah, I unfortunately wasn't able to be there, but it was sort of like a last-second call of whether or not I was going to be able to make it, so I still watched the movie, really, really enjoyed it, was bummed I couldn't be there, still added questions to the doc, so it's
yes,
like...
added some
sort of
questions which Chris Messina found intriguing.
But so it's like in spirit, I'm there, and it's like if Parth asks a question that you're like, that's really interesting, there's like a 50% chance that you think I'm interesting and not Parth. But who's definitely interesting 100% of the time, Parth. Even though I wasn't there, I just know this is the case. DP Chris Messina.
Even though this is 50% of the interview, because this is only part one, he's 100% interesting.
And he'll be 100% interesting also next week when we release part
So it's
two.
almost like you're going to get 200% worth of interesting from Chris Messina, who's a really good DP who we're queuing right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our interview with Chris Messina. He's the cinematographer behind our film for this week, Mary Bronstein's If I Had Legs, I Would Kick You. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So just to start off, could you talk about when you first knew you wanted to be a cinematographer?
Good question. I was really interested in films as a kid, but I didn't think of it much as a career. I didn't know anybody who worked in the film industry at all. I was more into art in general as a kid, like drawing and painting and that kind of stuff, and some photography. But then when I was applying to college, I was interested in places that did have some film programs, though I still was mostly interested in, I was, still studying more practical pursuits, I guess, at the time, what that seemed like was practical. but I ended up double majoring in college in like cinema studies, in part just because I was taking those classes for fun, and then suddenly there was enough for that to like actually count as a major as well. But it wasn't until maybe my last year as an undergrad that I thought, maybe like I actually don't want to get like a job like working in an office, and like I should go to film school and focus for a time period on actually becoming a filmmaker. So I ended up applying to grad school and to get an MFA in film production, thinking that I would be focusing more on directing. I thought I would want to like just like make movies or music videos and that kind of stuff. While I was there, I was always shooting my own things because I think even as a director, I was interested more in this visual aspects of the storytelling. So I'd shoot my own films, and then other people started also asking me to shoot their projects, and then one thing kind of led to another, and then I just started working more as a cinematographer, then focusing less on the idea of eventually getting into directing. So sort of a gradual discovery, I guess, that was what I was most interested in doing.
Jumping to the topic of the day, how did your journey lead you to meeting Mary Bronstein, and how did If I Had Legs, I Would Kick You come your way?
I met Mary through Josh Safdie, who I've known for 20 years because he was an undergrad when I was a grad student studying film. So we met there, and I worked on a number of projects with him there, and have, worked with them, Josh and Benny, for years after that. And Josh's creative partner is Ronnie Bronstein, who is Mary's husband. I sort of knew Mary a little bit casually just from bumping into, being in their office and sort of being in that orbit. And Mary made a movie kind of in the early 2000s called Yeast, which I had seen at South by Southwest. But I didn't, we hadn't worked together before this movie. And I think when she wrote the script and they decided that it was going to get made, Josh thought that I would be a good match for her in terms of, I think he just thought that we would get along and that I would share similar sensibilities to her. And so we met, he introduced us, and, I think we hit it off really well in the first meeting. And then it became pretty clear that she wanted me to shoot the project. So certainly an easier, came together more easily than certainly some other projects where like you're sort of asked where you're like really trying to work to convince someone to hire you. I think Mary and I just got along really well. And certainly, Josh recommending me and us having worked together for years, I think was a strong endorsement.
And so what was that pre-production process like for you then? Were you making like a lookbook? Were you, what was that process for you?
I didn't make a lookbook till much later on. Our initial meeting, they sent me the script, which I read, and the script was great. I was super excited about it from the beginning. It just was funny. It was dark, and there was, I think, a lot in the script visually. But our initial meeting, I brought in, I think, just a few photo books, and Mary had already been compiling images from photographers and some from other movies and paintings and things she sort of felt were the types of things that she was aiming for with this film. And so, we shared those things in the first meeting and talked a little bit about just, I think, the content of the film, and some about just like being a parent. I think like bonded over those. I think it seemed pretty clear early on that we were on a similar wavelength.
And how did you reach, the movie has like such a strong visual sensibility. It's very subjective. It's, a lot of handheld work, very stressful. How did you reach that? Were you storyboarding? Were you finding it more on the day? Like, what was that process for you guys?
We didn't do a lot of storyboarding. We only storyboarded maybe like 3 or 4 scenes, and more because they seemed like they were going to be like VFX heavy, or just needed some planning, like the hamster scene in the car we had done, and the ending, and then one other scene when they go to the apartment where there was going to be some VFX. But in the end, I don't think we ended up even sticking to the storyboards that closely, because there would be other constraints that would sort of
throw it off,
presented themselves on the day. But we shot listed the entire movie, and we talked a lot about what the intent of the scenes was early on. The movie got delayed for almost a year while we were waiting for Rose's availability. She was finishing a TV show, and Mary wanted to wait for her. So we started meeting every week over Zoom to just talk through the script and this a lot of the script. Mary had been working on it for years, so there was a lot in her head about like why the scene is here and what is the point of it that I wouldn't have necessarily got just from reading the script. And I think talking about those things really gave a good foundation for how to think about shooting it. I think one of the tricky things as a cinematographer is sometimes it takes a while to get into the director's head, or even, if they haven't written the script, like to kind of understand the intent of everything. I find sometimes you get like halfway through a movie and it all starts to click a little bit more as to like, this is what we're going for. But because we had this whole year of talking about it, I think I had a really good understanding of like what was important and what we were trying to do, what Mary wanted to get out of scenes, or why even those scenes existed in the movie, and how they interconnected to other scenes in the movie. The script to me always felt like you couldn't cut any scene out because each one like kind of spoke to another one, and there was a very like cause and effect.
Did it change at all over that year that it got delayed, or?
I don't think there was a new draft ever from the first one I saw. Like maybe, some typos got fixed or something like that, but it didn't, content wise, nothing changed, and nothing changed based on the production schedule, or, it was a fairly long script, maybe like 130 pages. But, they scheduled everything to be shot and we didn't cut anything, and we shot every scene in the script. There's a couple that ended up getting cut out of the movie, but they were like pretty small, insignificant scenes that just like, and a few scenes got shortened, but pretty much what she had written is what
is on the screen.
Yeah, we shot, which I think is really, certainly a testament to her writing ability, that the movie really was sort of fully formed on the page. And obviously we interpreted it in a way, but a lot of the ideas were there very early on.
Sure. I believe the movie was shot on 35 millimeters. Is that the case?
Basically half of it was shot on 35. Pretty much, it's a pretty even split between day and night. We shot the night stuff digitally.
And was that just purely like a low light thing, or was that a creative choice?
I think it was a function of a few things. Initially, Mary had thought about shooting the film on 16 millimeter, because I think, she just likes 16, and it has, I think, part of the raw aesthetic that she kind of wanted the film to have. 16 would have lended itself to. But we started doing tests. We tested 16 and 35 and digital with the idea of like that we would potentially have to shoot some things digitally and match them. And in the test, I think the 35 millimeter just really sort of spoke more to what the film felt like than 16. I was also a little more wary of mixing 16 millimeter and digital, because they're just like I think 16 is a little bit harder to fake. There's some things about it that are very inherent to the medium. Mary also really wanted the night stuff to be dark in real life while we were there, not to have to like make these spaces bright and light up these huge spaces. I think she wanted the actors to feel like they were really living in the environment that the movie takes place in. So I always thought I would do better work shooting digital for some of the night stuff, and some of the scenes of it, like the night exteriors, I think would have been really challenging to do on film on our budget. I just don't know that we could afford to light the entire beach scene for sure.
Did you have to fight for film at all? We've spoken to some DPs that have had to like push for it with the studio.
I don't think we didn't really have to fight film. There was a little bit of a pushback as to whether or not we could fully afford shooting 35. I think if we wanted to do the whole movie on 35 and not shoot some of it digitally, there would have been a little bit of a question of whether or not the budget could have handled it. But also all of the producers on this movie, like Josh and Ronnie, and also Sarah
They're
Murphy.
Obviously pro-film.
Sarah Murphy is very pro-film also. So everybody was enthusiastic about the fact that film looks great. So that was less of a, I don't think anybody really pushed back creatively on it being worthwhile. There are people sometimes who are like, is it really that much better? But everybody here was pretty positive on the idea of shooting 35. I think it's just the both those things, I think film allowed us to push some of the daylight stuff more. There was an idea early on of doing like really bright like beams of light, which there's a little bit of that in the movie, but in the end, a lot of the locations didn't quite lend itself to that. But Mary wanted there to be like harsh daylight, like her life she's experienced during the day, like the sun itself is also sort of like punishing. The script originally took place it's still in sort of a beachy town, but at one point it was written to be more in like Southern California. And the idea that you can be in a beautiful place where like you should be able to enjoy your life, but the circumstances of it are making everything, even like the sun, seem like it's just like oppressive and miserable. So we thought that sort of film would give us the best look for the daylight stuff, and that the digital stuff that we wanted to be really dark at night, like we would get the most out of the digital camera doing that. And I wasn't worried about matching them because I had done that on other projects. And we did do a test ahead of time just to make sure that the dailies processing, that everything would kind of look similar and you wouldn't get like random people watching through the dailies and wondering why this stuff looks a little strange compared to this. So they did a good job, I think, of matching it all.
And just speaking on location, where were you shooting? And like, what's the ratio of on location to like soundstage work?
I think we did 3 days in a soundstage or 4. So it's mostly all locations. The film was 27 days total, like maybe like about a week that we were in a soundstage. And that's just for her bedroom interior stuff and the stuff with the hole in the ceiling, which, obviously would have been hard to do on location.
Right.
So we shot, the hotel is in Montauk and Long Island, and all of pretty much that whole environment exists there. It's literally, you could walk to the beach from the hotel. All the places that you see her go are really within like a 3 or 4 block radius there, which was great. And we really settled on shooting in New York in general because of that location. There was talk about potentially shooting in New Jersey, and prior to that, some idea of maybe shooting in South Carolina. All these states are competing with different tax incentives, and it happened to work out that we found this location on Long Island, and so then the whole movie, was based in New York.
Hopefully, New Jersey gives you a better rate on the next one.
They actually had it was a comparative rate, but I think there was some sort of, it was hard to get a hotel location on the Jersey Shore. There was like all these like, conventions happening at the time. Like it was like a firefighters convention or something like that, and it was like, well, we can't actually use this other location that was appealing because of availability. So it wasn't that Jersey didn't have a good enough tax incentive. But
you spoke a little bit about the hole. Can you talk about that location and shooting that? Because that obviously like evolves over the course of the movie. And the movie's been out for a while, so I don't mind saying like it starts getting there's like a VFX component to it later on in the movie. Can you talk about shooting that location and the changes that goes through for you as a DP?
Yeah, that was a tricky one to plan. I think initially there were 4 like iterations of the hole. Like she goes back to the apartment. I think one of them is maybe removed from the movie now. So maybe there's just 3 in the movie. But there were 3 different versions of the hole. It was supposed to, it breaks and then it slowly sort of grows and sort of like takes on a life of its own throughout the movie. And so we had to sort of plan like what each of those was going to look like, and then the art department constructed there's like basically a ceiling panel that could be swapped out, and then they would have to redress it when they put it in. And there was an idea that became a little more subtle of like the hole actually like coming to life a little bit, which if you look closely, it's still kind of like the later shots of it does move a tiny bit, but it's very it's coming to life ended up being somewhat subtle, but all that stuff was integrated into the design that the art department built. The challenge was just was also finding a way to change these things out fairly quickly while we were in this location, because there weren't a lot of other things that we could shoot in the space. Basically, the studio was the bedroom, a little bit of the upstairs, and a little bit of the hallway, and the rest of the apartment was like a practical apartment. So we stitched those 2 things together, and the bathroom we built too because of the water. So the challenge in part was just like kind of trying to manage the days to like get as much shooting time as possible and still give them time to like redress this one set, because we couldn't build multiples of the set.
Another question I guess I have is, you spoke about the lighting setup. When you're working in the nighttime, you want it to feel for the actors like it's nighttime, and you have this sort of strong light motif throughout the movie. But was your lighting rig or setups like, were you trying to keep them like a little bit more minimalist, or on set was it like, what was that like?
Generally speaking, we tried to light each location we sort of treated as its own character and tried to light that space more generally. I think a big part of that, one, thinking about the performance for the actors, like how can we, I think performance and time, which are two things that are sort of intertwined with each other in a way. It's like we knew we had 27 days to shoot this movie, and there was a lot of scenes in the script. All the days were pretty full, and it was always the top priority was always going to be the performance. So tried to think of a way to be able to be shooting as much as possible and spending as little time lighting and tweaking, which I think, part of that fits in very well with Mary's idea of how she wanted the movie to look, which she didn't want it to look too slick. So we weren't going to be like finessing every shot to be perfect and beautiful. It was more about giving these characters like a space to exist in, and film so that we didn't, so they would feel free to perform and we could run the scene from beginning to end and they could move around if they needed to. And so we'd be getting as much material as possible. So that really dictated, I think, some of the approach to the lighting, that and the idea of not making things too slick, and also wanting each location to feel different. The idea is like, what would it really look like in this space? Not like what's going to make the actors look the best. Like, where can we put the lights for like the shot to be the prettiest? It's like, oh, well, in her office, she would have kind of shitty lighting because she's not, she doesn't have a great lamp and she's not putting on a lot of time into designing the space. Her window is kind of small. The hotel, she's forced to sit in the dark so that because her child is sleeping. So what does that look like? What does it feel like when like the only light in the room is basically this light from the machine and a little bit creepy around the curtains? So that dictated a lot more the approach to lighting than like, what do we specifically want each frame to look like? And we would, occasionally finesse something if like where the shot got set up, it just like, something wasn't working about it. But for the most part, we were able to pre-light the spaces or get them close to lit ahead of time, and then could just adjust when we showed up. And that gave us a lot more time to do the scenes. And I feel like it wasn't, we shot every scene that was in the script. And I don't think, even though it was a tight schedule, we never had to move on from a scene feeling like
We didn't get it.
we didn't get as many takes as we wanted, or this could have been better. I think every scene felt like it was working on the day, at least performance wise. And I think that is important for that the actors felt that way as well. I don't think that they ever felt bad about like, I wanted another take and we didn't have time for it.
And speaking on the performance, I mean, so much of this movie is just like a close up on Rose Byrne's face. And she's doing great things with her face in the movie. But can you talk about wanting to deploy that versus breaking that? And like, how did you decide on that?
Yeah, Mary was always very into the idea of shooting close and being close with the actors. But I think also wanting to get into the actors' headspace was really sort of the driving force behind the choices of how to cover things with the camera. And so part of that is we only ever we see things from her perspective, and then the camera remains like pretty close to her. We never see her from someone else's perspective, Linda, Rose's character, and that also feeds into like the idea of how she's not really seeing her child, and the camera is never looking at the child. I think being close to her more naturally played into how we're remaining in her subjective space and obscuring, or being selective, I guess, about showing what she sees and doesn't see. Which I think if the film itself had less of a subjective perspective and more objective, where we were further back, it wouldn't work as well to be as selective in terms of showing what she sees and doesn't see.
Were you operating yourself?
I did all the operating except for there's a handful of Steadicam shots that we had a Steadicam
Right.
operator for.
So your back must be, I'm thanking you for that.
But certainly, I think for this kind of movie, I feel more comfortable operating because I think it's easier to make subtle adjustments in between takes, and kind of the intimacy of working with the actor on set with them, and it feeling like a smaller crew in general, I think aids in performance. If it feels like it's just, myself, Mary, and the sound person on set with the two actors in the room. To me, that seems like a nice way to make a film. I don't know if the actors actually feel the difference, but I would imagine it's
more intimate setting.
That's an element of it that it feels like you can focus a little bit more. And I like that, and I think I do find that easier to make be improving each shot a little bit when you're like literally there sitting with the camera and
Making
watching
the shot
through the eyepiece, and you can say, well, you remember all the little things that you would like to change with each successive take.
What an interview.
Yeah, Parth, I know I wasn't there, but it felt like I was. And I told you the episodes of this podcast I happen to enjoy the most are like the 5 interviews that I wasn't present for, because then I get to watch my boy work.
Trent, the only episode of this podcast that I like is the Muppets episode where it's just you. So,
oh wow, I forgot.
You have a lot more to gain out of this podcast than I do at this point.
If you asked me 5 seconds ago, has Parth ever not been on an episode, I would have said no. This is like, he runs this shit. But I forgot about that. So if you just want to watch Trent work and like
really work while he has COVID.
Yeah, while I have COVID
in 2021,
you can listen to that. Parth, haven't you never even listened to that?
I tried but the problem is I've not seen any of the Muppet films other than Muppets Most Wanted, which is the most random one I could have seen. But then I was like, I think we were like maybe going to watch some of the Muppet movies and do something for it on the show. I can't quite remember.
When I was more in my Muppet phase.
I held off.
Pushing for that.
Right. I held off on listening to it because I was like, I think I need to watch the movies. And I, still want to, but just haven't. And then like a year ago, or maybe just a few months ago, I was like, there is like a whole episode of just Trent talking where he has told me he goes like insane because he has COVID and he's talking into the void. And I
had been alone in a room for like 4 days watching only the Muppet movies and smoking weed and having COVID. And
I was like, that sort of sounds like fun. Maybe like there's some fun stuff in there. And I tried listening to it, but it's difficult. It's truly difficult for me to listen to the episodes before we have our professional recording equipment, because we just sound so much worse and our editing capabilities were much worse back then.
Well, I appreciate you chalking it up to that. I thought you were just going to say you started listening and then the content was too rough, or I seemed in too rough of a place that it was.
No, I think if I had seen the Muppet films, I would at least have something to like latch onto there. But without knowing anything about the Muppet movies, I'm just listening to like not great audio and not great editing, and so it's just sort of like, what do we do here, But what is great, or what was great, was our interview with Chris Messina. He was super cool. He was very nice, and I'm glad he came on the show. He's not nominated at the Oscars, but he should be, because this is a great movie, due in no small part to the cinematography.
Yes, I love the look of this movie. I loved this movie altogether. Was bummed I could not be there. Appreciate Parth holding down the fort, still making that happen. Thanks, Chris Messina, for coming on.
And if you haven't checked it out, I think you really should. I mean, the Marty Supreme has sort of taken more of a hold of the Safdie movies, but I think of the Safdie produced films this year, I think I may be connected with this one the most.
Oh, this is me learning that it was produced by the Safdies. I just saw it was A24.
Oh no, Trent, you haven't listened to the interview, but he's got a whole Safdies connection. Maybe you'll listen to part 1 and then you'll be eager for part 2, which... So thanks.
Wait, that comes out next week.
Yeah, so glad you mentioned this.
Sunday at 5 a.m.
Yes. As do all our episodes.
Yeah, perfect. And then where these episodes happen can be found, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Pandora,
etc. Really wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever you get your podcast. And part, I'm not done, man. I'm not finished.
Trent, that seems like we've been saying this for years. You're not done?
There's more now. YouTube. Craft Services is on YouTube.
Wow. And you can see a little wave go up and down as we talk.
Yep. So all of our older episodes are gradually getting uploaded.
Pretty soon, the Muppets episode's going to be up.
Yes. But in a month or so, you can listen to our most recent episodes come out on YouTube if that's your thing.
Yes. Thank you so much to producer Bash Loyo Velazquez.
Bash, you the fucking man.
Yeah, he's the reason that things are even on YouTube.
Keep up the good work. Love that freaking guy, Parth. We have a group chat. Now it's the three of us.
It's called Craft Services Central.
This family's growing. Have I texted in it ever? I don't know.
We wished happy birthday to him.
Oh, see, I'm not a monster.
Yeah. You're just ahead of the curve.
You guys are always like, yo, we gotta Zoom and talk about ideas.
And Trent's like, I'm just smoking some weed, man. You gotta chill.
Yeah, thanks again, Chris Messina. Reviews, 5 stars, that'd be great. If not, 4 stars is fine. Tell a friend about the show. We're on Instagram and Twitter. See, Parth.
Trent, you still... I was worried. I was worried,
got it.
but like you've still got it.
I was talking to Jackson, I think, or someone else recently, and I said, bro, like, I don't think I can go to this interview. The first time Parth asked Bash to come on and do the interview with him, I'm cooked, man. Like, that's that. From that point on, I'm cooked.
It's over. Yeah.
But Bash, like, one day, like, let's get your butt in here.
Yeah. We got to do something.
But you can't replace me. You will not replace me. But you could be a third chair. But I'm here to stay, Bash. Or anyone else who's listening out here who thinks that you and Parth
Trent,
could do a podcast together.
You're really afraid of losing your position.
You can't replace me. I know I haven't been here for like 5 episodes.
Okay, over the course of 6 years.
I'm here to stay, bitch.
Wow. And on that note,
bye, guys.
Bye, guys. See you next week.